What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down some very important developments on the charts right now, which are going to be very helpful in determining what the market could end up telling us going into tomorrow. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just say a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. Put in $1,000 and you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks. The offer ends in just about 15 hours from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. The market is once again, guys, showing less strength than before, especially relative to yesterday and the previous days. And this is very similar to what I was telling you guys in the morning, looking at SPY and many tickers out there. Nvda has come down quite a bit, right? Aapl is very flat. The QQQ has come down quite a bit. SPY is also starting to drop a bit. But we need to be watching for confirmation going into tomorrow. And we're going to be watching to see how these technicals end up developing. Unlike the other tickers, though, Tesla's showing a bit more strength as it's trying to hold up. We ended up popping very nicely during the open session, but then after that, Tesla came back down and it's been trading completely flat. So we didn't get much of a pullback on Tesla just yet. We did pull back like when we started off, then we got this pop before it just traded sideways. But the question is, how is the market going to move going forward, and how is this going to end up affecting Tesla? So I want to start off by talking about SPY. The daily chart gives you everything you need to know. So basically, the daily candlestick is looking a little weaker as of right now, but we have to see how this closes going into like the end of the day. Now, to add on to this, when you look at the chart, okay, we have this resistance right here at 452. That's going to be a very tight resistance. We've seen this thing reject in this range in the past, and we came very close to that area today. So this could be the top for SPY. We might start to see this thing downtrend a bit, especially if we get a weak close for it today. However, if this is a trap, let's just say the market cools off a bit, but we get another pump either for Thursday or Friday, depending on OPEX. If we break 452, we could turn even more bullish. We have some resistance at 453 from historical levels. Then we have this gap to fill all the way up to this like 455 area, not to mention 457. So if we break 452 plus, if we end up breaking that, 455 to 457 is where SPY could top. We could pop a little bit more and then reject. If we fail to break 452, then we could just reject from here and see some downside. All right. The daily candlestick is looking a little weak because we gapped up, we popped a little bit, and we started to come down a bit. And you can see we're showing less strength than before. And this is exactly what I was warning you guys about during the morning session about SPY and these different tickers. So what are some levels to watch for? We're just kind of chopping around this like 449.5 area to about 450.4 around that range, just going back and forth, not really doing a whole lot. But one thing that's worth noting is that we basically gapped up, we kind of popped a little bit. And from where we opened, this thing is basically, very close to that level, if not trying to like get below that. So it's starting to show less strength than before, right? And it's not really pumping like crazy like we saw over the last couple of days. It's actually starting to decline a little bit. So the resistance is getting tighter and the market could be in a topping process. I believe we are in one, but it depends on which level we end up breaking. So either 452 is going to be a pivot level, and this is where the top is. The market's going to start downtrending a bit, start to like pull back in a very healthy fashion. Or it could be if we break that, then it's 455 to 457 is where the top is. That's what I'm seeing for SPY. Right now, it's looking more like, it's kind of struggling to break 452. You could see what happened today and also during the pre-market session. So we'll be watching this going into tomorrow. But there is some weakness here. If we end up losing 449, anticipate 448.6, and below that we have even more support at 447.5. Now this looks very distributive, which suggests that there could be some downside coming in the future, but just to be safe, we'll be watching these different levels. We'll be watching to see how it ends up looking and how the closes end up looking too. For Tesla, we have a potential flag that's forming, not looking that bad. It's actually showing some strength compared to the market, which is a good sign for Tesla. But if the market starts to decline, if we do get some kind of decline in the markets, this would drag Tesla down a bit. So you want to be prepared for that. You just want to be watching these levels closely. Now, if this flag is bullish, you want to see Tesla get a bullish break, but we haven't really done that yet. If you want to turn really bullish, we need to see Tesla break 247. If that breaks, 250 is going to come. If you're bearish, you want to see Tesla basically continue to downtrend, eventually break below this support right here and lose 238. If we lose that, it's going to start downtrending towards 235, if not 232 all over again. Right now, we're just respecting this channel. We'll be watching this very, very carefully and see if the flag is forming or not. And it looks like it's just kind of trading sideways around the 243s so far. So it might just continue on this trend and remain as is, not really doing a whole lot, just chopping around. So we'll be watching this very carefully as time goes on. But even though Tesla did a little bit better than what I was predicting in the morning, I was correct about SPY showing some weakness. I was also correct about Apple, Nvda, and the QQQ. If you look at Apple, okay, I told everyone that Apple could pump a little bit more, but we're going to be watching resistance around 190, between 190 and like 188.5. And we're basically just there right now. We're kind of chopping around, not really doing a whole lot on Apple. And if we end up losing the 30-minute 20 EMA, we could see some more downsides. You want to be watching that very carefully. Apple is very tight. We'll be watching this, but there is tight resistance at 190. If we break it, we will turn bullish. If we fail to break it, we could, once again retest this lower level from this new channel that's developed on Apple. If we break below this support in the 188 area, anticipate it's going to come down to like 187.25 or even below that. So that's going to turn bearish. As of right now, it hasn't broken, so we're just going to be watching this like sideways price action. Watch resistance around 189, watch support at 188.5. That's like the really tight range we've been in for almost all day. So watch that range. Just know Apple is still looking very flat, and it's not looking as strong as before, which is something I mentioned earlier. On Nvidia, it's looking weak, at least for the time being, or at least weaker than before. I'm just talking about this like relative to what we saw in the past. We had this bullish structure. I was talking about this yesterday, but I told you all that, look, it's going to likely hit 500. If you want to be bullish, you want to see it break this 500 area. If it failed to do so, anticipate a rejection. And what happened? The rejection ended up coming, and Nvidia was leading the market, especially the QQQ and the Nasdaq, to the downside. So on Nvidia, we were talking about 500 being some tight resistance, and now we're starting to downtrend a bit. We're watching 488, that entire zone right there, which is acting as a very, very interesting looking pivot stage. We have a potential, this could develop into like an inverse head and shoulders. Maybe it makes a rebound tomorrow morning before it comes back down. But for now, I just want to mention that Nvidia is still not looking as strong as before. It's not pumping as hard. I called this out in the morning as well, and that's what's playing out thus far. And you can also see how these levels are just respecting very, very nicely. So you can see the support right here at 182 is where it bounced off of. We had this resistance at, did I say one? I meant 482. Then we have this resistance at 488, not to mention 490. So those are some important levels to watch for. Now, as time goes on, Nvidia looks like it's just going to chop around the 488 and watch this 490 resistance, which is where we have this imbalance. If we break this, we could see the inverse head and shoulders play out for a little rebound before it continues lower, but there is going to be some risk, so just be very careful when playing this. Now, as far as Nvidia goes, the trend is starting to turn to the downside. Even if it pops a little bit up, it could still be trending downwards and still continue lower over the next couple of days. All right, so watch these levels. Don't forget to watch this resistance at 488 to 490, then 495, and watch support at 485, then 482, and then 480. All right, so we'll be watching these levels carefully. We'll see how it moves for the time being. Looking at the QQQ, this is going to be the last one I talk about in this video. The QQQ is looking weaker than before. If you look at the QQQ, okay, we have this resistance right over here. We had a bullish wedge that formed. We actually saw a very, very nice pop in the morning, and we saw this thing go all the way up to almost 390. In my video from yesterday, I said 388 to 390 is where we have some tight resistance, especially 390. We came just short of it and we got this rejection. After getting the rejection, not only do we have resistance developing, but you will see that we also happen to have a possible head and shoulders. We have a left shoulder here, a right shoulder here. We have the head that formed either from here. If you want to include the wick, you can also count that. We have a head and shoulders like pattern on the QQQ, and we have this next resistance trend line we're going to be watching as our resistance. So with that being said, this could start dropping lower, possibly because of Nvidia. Maybe Apple starts to reject off 190. The market could be in a topping process, and this is suggesting that is likely. Now, if you want to be bullish, you want to see this thing basically break above 388 and start pushing up. If you're bearish, you want to see this thing lose 384.8. If we end up losing this support right here, very close to 385, I anticipate it's going to just continue to drop, and 383.5 could be next, not to mention 382. So there is going to be some risk to the downside on the QQQ. We're going to be watching to see if this thing could break out or not. It's looking a little weaker as the market has hit some tight resistance. So be very careful. Looking at SPY, I just want to call out, we're just kind of shopping in the 450s. We'll be watching this very carefully. Wait and see how the daily close looks. And also for Tesla, we're all kind of chopping around as well between 242.5 and like 244. We'll be watching this very carefully to see if there's a flag forming or something like that. All right, so that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope this video was helpful for the intraday traders out there. Watch these levels and we'll see how Tesla moves from here on out. But please remember that the market could be very tricky sometimes, and it's very important to be prepared for anything. And just know that the market has some tight resistance to be fighting for. It is still possible the market goes a bit higher if we break the resistance levels. But for now, some technicals are looking a little weaker, such as the QQQ and SPY. So I just wanted to call that out. We'll be watching to see how the market closes. And until then, thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you and peace out.